Your body whispers secrets to you all the time. But what if it wasn't, a whisper? What if your body could actually shout a life-saving warning days before something major happens?
Yeah, we're talking about strokes today. And most people think they strike completely out of the blue.
That's the terrifying part, isn't it? That suddenness.
It is. But the surprising thing, looking at the sources for this deep dive, is that often, well, the body does give signals beforehand.
Signals.
Okay.
But the problem is, they're not always obvious signals.
Exactly. They're frequently subtle, maybe easy to brush off, or you just don't connect the dots.
Right. You think, oh, I just slept funny or something.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And that's why understanding these signs is so, so important. So our mission here is really to break down these early warnings.
Explain why paying attention is critical.
And crucially, what action you need to take. It could literally save a life.
Okay, let's dive in. So maybe start with the basics. What is a stroke, fundamentally?
Okay, so fundamentally, a stroke happens when blood flow to a part of your brain gets blocked, like a clog in a pipe.
Or there's another way?
Or the other possibility is a blood vessel in the brain actually bursts, bleeding in the brain.
In either way, the result is bad.
Very bad. Because without that blood, brain cells don't get oxygen and they start to die.
Yeah.
Really fast. We're talking within minutes.
Wow. Okay. And that cell death is what causes the potential long-term problems, disability or worse.
That's exactly it. Which really highlights why time is it's everything with stroke. Getting treatment fast, restoring blood flow, or stopping bleeding.
Every second counts.
Every single second makes a huge difference to the outcome.
But, okay, here's the twist from the sources, right?
Yeah.
You might not just suddenly have that massive event.
Correct. Your body can actually give you a heads up, sometimes days, maybe even weeks before the full stroke hits.
A heads up.
Well, this brings us to something called a mini stroke. The proper medical term is a transient ischemic attack, TIA.
TIA, transient ischemic attack. Transient means temporary.
Exactly. Think of it like a temporary blockage. It causes those stroke-like symptoms, but then the blockage clears itself.
And the symptoms go away.
They disappear, usually pretty quickly, maybe a few minutes, perhaps an hour or two max. Then you feel normal again.
And that's the danger, isn't it? Because you think, oh, weird moment, glad that's over.
That is the absolute trap. The sources are really clear on this. Just because the symptoms are temporary, a TIA is not harmless. Far from it.
It's a warning sign.
A huge warning sign, a really serious one.
And there's data on this.
Yeah, pretty sobering data, actually. According to the sources, about 40% of people who have a TIA, they go on to have a major stroke later.
40%, that's high.
It is. And here's the kicker. For many of them, that big stroke happens within just days of the TIA.
Days. Wow. Okay, so a TIA isn't just a close call. It's like a flashing red light saying a big one might be coming very, very soon.
Couldn't put it better myself. Your risk just skyrockets immediately after a TIA.
Okay, so if a TIA is this crucial warning, what does it feel like? What are these signs we need to look out for?
Right, the specific symptoms. The sources list several key things, and recognizing even one warrants immediate attention.
One big one seems to be sudden numbness or weakness, especially if it's just on one side of the body.
Yes, absolutely. That one-sidedness, face, arm, or leg suddenly going weak or numb, that's a classic sign.
Okay, what else?
Sudden trouble speaking, like slurring words or having difficulty finding words or even understanding what someone else is saying. Sudden confusion.
Vision problems, too.
Sudden blurred vision or seeing double just comes on out of nowhere.
Okay, numbness, weakness, speech issues, vision.
Also, sudden dizziness or losing your balance, feeling unsteady on your feet, trouble with coordination.
Things you might potentially blame on something else, maybe?
Yeah.
Like being tired.
You might, but the suddenness is the clue, and especially if it happens alongside other signs.
There was one more on the list that surprised me a bit. A headache.
Yeah, but not just any headache. We're talking about a sudden, really severe headache, often described as the worst headache of someone's life, with no obvious cause.
Okay, that's distinct.
Definitely. And then just general sudden confusion or trouble thinking clearly. Again, the key word is sudden, an abrupt change.
So it's a whole range of things. Movement, speech, sight, thinking. But suddenness is the common thread.
That's the pattern. And the most vital message from all the sources is, even if these symptoms pop up and then vanish completely after a few minutes,
Don't ignore them.
absolutely do not ignore them. They are a major, major red flag.
Which leads directly to the most important question. What do you do? If you or someone you're with gets hit with any of these symptoms, even briefly?
The advice is crystal clear and urgent. Call 911 or your local emergency number immediately.
Immediately. Not wait and see.
No waiting, no, oh, maybe you'll feel better after a nap. No toughing it out.
Because every second matters, right? Even if it was just a TIA.
Yes. Because even if the symptoms stopped, that TIA means something serious happened with the blood flow in your brain. You need immediate medical evaluation.
And why is calling emergency services so vital right then? What can they do?
Well, paramedics can start assessing you right away. And at the hospital, doctors can run tests like brain scans.
To see what happened.
Exactly. To confirm if it was a TIA and, crucially, to try and figure out why it happened, what caused that temporary blockage.
And knowing the cause helps prevent the big one.
That's the whole point. Once they know the cause, they can start treatments or recommend changes to dramatically lower your risk of having that full, potentially devastating stroke. It's your window of opportunity.
So the TIA is the body's alarm bell, and calling 911 is how you answer it.
Perfectly said. You're listening to the alarm and getting the experts involved to diffuse the situation.
Okay, so recognize the signs, act fast. That's the emergency plan. But what about the longer term? How can you lower your stroke risk overall?
Right, the proactive steps. The sources highlight several key lifestyle factors. Top of the list. Managing high blood pressure.
That's a big one for heart health generally, too.
It's huge. It's a major controllable risk factor. So keeping blood pressure in check is fundamental. Also, eating a heart-healthy diet. You know, fruits, vegetables, whole grains, lean protein.
Makes sense. What else?
If you smoke, quitting is absolutely essential. Smoking really damages blood vessels.
Non-negotiable.
Definitely. Getting regular physical exercise is also key. Managing stress levels. Easier said than done sometimes, I know, but important.
Limiting alcohol.
Limiting alcohol intake. And also keeping an eye on cholesterol and blood sugar levels, especially important if you have diabetes.
It sounds like what's good for your heart is really good for your brain.
They are deeply connected. Healthy heart, healthy blood vessels, healthy brain. And there's one more piece of advice the sources give.
Which is?
Listen to your body. Just pay attention.
No.
Don't automatically dismiss things that feel weird or off as just stress or a bad day.
Trust your gut sometimes.
Kind of, yeah. If something feels genuinely wrong, especially if it matches any of those sudden TIA symptoms, get it checked out. That intuition plus knowing the signs, that's powerful.
Okay. So wrapping this deep dive up, the main takeaway seems pretty clear. A major stroke might feel sudden, but often the body does try to warn us.
Usually through these mini strokes, these TIAs. And that warning, even if it's brief, is incredibly serious.
Ignoring it is basically playing Russian roulette with your brain health.
It really is. Recognizing those sudden symptoms, the weakness, the speech trouble, the vision changes, dizziness, that severe headache, and calling for help immediately is the absolute best thing you can do.
You mentioned sources.
Yeah.
For listeners who want to maybe dig a bit deeper into the prevention side, particularly natural approaches.
Yeah, one of the sources we looked at mentioned the book Lowering High Blood Pressure Naturally by Dale Ruddock. It was described as being full of practical, natural steps for heart and, by extension, brain health. Might be worth exploring.
Good to know. Ultimately, it feels like knowledge is key here.
Absolutely. Knowledge is power. Knowing the signs, understanding the urgency, listening to your body. It gives you a measure of control.
And maybe sharing this knowledge, too. These aren't obscure signs. Everyone should probably know them.
Definitely. Telling friends, family, it could genuinely help someone recognize a warning in themselves or someone else and get help fast enough to make a real difference. Could save a life.
So it leaves us with a final thought, perhaps. Based on everything we've discussed about how the body can signal something as serious as a stroke. It makes you wonder, doesn't it? If your body can send these sometimes subtle warnings for a major crisis, like a stroke, what other messages, maybe less urgent but still important for your health, might it be sending you right now that you just haven't quite tuned into yet?